Yeah, hi folks. Now, right now, I really feel ashamed to be a New Zealander, knowing that Helen Clark, a New Zealander, has been a major driving force behind the WHO's pandemic treaty. Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to revisit some Tucker Carlson clips from my last video to illustrate Clark's influence via her so-called independent panels, recommendations, etc. But first, let's see who's on that panel. Now folks, much of today's video has been pre-recorded. The independent panel. Now this is the so-called independent panel that made recommendations for the WHO's pandemic treaty. So we have Helen Clark at the top, along with Her Excellency Alan Johnson Sirleaf. Now most of these people are tied in with the UN in one way, shape or form. Now she's a Nobel Peace Laureate. Now that qualifies her to be very independent, doesn't it? Former Minister of Finance, economist of Colombia. Now, that country is doing very well after his leadership, isn't it? Diplomat, Pan-African activist, feminist. Now, that really qualifies her to be independent. Global Fund, United Nations. Global Fund, United Nations again. MSF, Doctors Without Borders, also tied in with the UN. Now she used to work at the UN. Now, there's not much about this guy. UN again. Not much about her. This guy also used to work at the UN.
Under this treaty, WHO members must enforce orders from the WHO. They have to act as the heavies for the WHO, and if they don't, they'll be sanctioned. The White House is going to be the muscle for the director of the World Health Organization. So who is the director of the World Health Organization? Well, that would be a former member of Ethiopia's Marxist-Leninist party called Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. He once led the Ministry of Health in Ethiopia. He's not a physician. But as the head of the Ministry of Health in Ethiopia, for political reasons, he covered up 3 cholera outbreaks, the opposite of what he's supposed to do. He wrote off cholera as simply acute watery diarrhea. Again, he's not a doctor, so maybe he didn't know, but he did know. He did it for political reasons. Those outbreaks were taking place among disfavored groups. Then Tedros tried to appoint Robert Mugabe, the racist murderer who ran Zimbabwe into the ground, as an international goodwill ambassador for public health. Now, at the time, Zimbabwe was the poorest, most mismanaged, most racist country in the world. And yet Tedros thought he should be a goodwill ambassador for public health. These are some of the reasons that Tedros, needless to say, is a close friend of Tony Fauci's.
So Tedros is really an outstanding person. I've known him from the time that he was the Minister of Health of Ethiopia. I mean, obviously, over the years, anyone who says that the WHO has not had problems has not been watching the WHO. But I think under his leadership, they've done very well.
Yeah, they've done very well. He's an outstanding person, that friend of Robert Mugabe's. And because he's such an outstanding person, we are days away from giving him operational control over our government's public health system.
Yes, Tedros will get authoritarian power and independence thanks to Clark and her cohorts. Focus and strengthen the independence, authority and financing of the WHO. The panel recommends establish WHO's financial independence based on fully unearmarked resources. Increase member states' fees to 2/3 of the budget for the WHO base program and have an organised replenishment process for the remainder of the budget. Strengthen the authority and independence of the Director General.
And it's not just lockdowns that man, Tedros, would be able to dictate. The World Health Organization would also assume total control over vaccine manufacturing and distribution. We're not making this up, by the way. According to the document, WHO would create a, quote, truly global end-to-end platform for vaccines, diagnostics, therapeutics, and essential supplies, shifting from a model where innovation is left to the market to a model aimed at delivering global public goods.
Thanks again to Clark and her panel. Transform the current Act A into a truly global end-to-end platform for vaccine, diagnostics, therapeutics and essential supplies, shifting from a model where innovation is left to the market to a model aimed at delivering global public goods.
And we're not making it up. That's a verbatim quote. It actually says that. No more innovation, centralized control. According to the treaty, those vaccines and essential medicines, because it gets better on every page, will be distributed not on the basis of need, but on the basis of equity.
Once again, thanks to Clark and her cohorts. The immediate issue is how to reach a political agreement for sharing and redistributing available doses of vaccine and committed doses to come, based on what is best from a global public health perspective, with equity at the centre. Now back to Tucker once more, but this time it's not so much about Clark.
So what will this operational control mean? Let's be specific. Right off the bat, the treaty demands, quote, national and global coordinated actions to address the misinformation, disinformation, and stigmatization that undermine public health. Oh, here we go. Right to censorship. People are criticizing us, and for public health reasons, that can't be allowed. If you criticize us, people will die. So you saw yesterday that the Biden administration, in the face of universal laughter and derision, had to fire the head of its new Ministry of Truth. But they found another way to do it. Quote, WHO Secretariat to build capacity to deploy proactive countermeasures against misinformation and social media attacks. Oh, are you following this? So they're going to get to censor anybody who doesn't agree with what they do.
But Tucker, that is happening right now. Social media de facto proxy for the WHO are censoring people right now. Have a look at this video I got recently. Not a video, sorry, an email. Hi, Terry Opines. We wanted to let you know our team reviewed your content and we think it violates our medical misinformation policy. We know you may not have realised this was a violation of our policies, so we're not applying a strike to your channel. Thank you very much. However, we have removed the following content from YouTube. COVID-19, the Vaccine Man. Now this video is from about 2 years ago. We realise this may be disappointing news, but it's our job to make sure that YouTube is a safe place for all. If you think we've made a mistake, you can appeal this decision. You'll find more details below. What our policy says. YouTube, the de facto proxy, doesn't allow claims about COVID-19 vaccinations that contradict expert consensus from local health authorities or the World Health Organization, or the World Health Organization. Now, this video does not contradict local health authorities nor the WHO. It's about a Bill Gates patent, a cryptocurrency patent. Now folks, I've posted a link to that deleted video below, but sadly some of the audio quality is a bit dodgy. And I've also posted a link to the final recommendations, etc., made by Helen Clark's so-called independent panel.